The great hall stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats, their bodies strange and wonderful. Some looked like walking trees with silver bark. Others had blue skin that glowed softly in the dim light. A few had tentacles instead of arms, and their eyes sat on top of their heads like small telescopes. Tae-ho stood in the center of it all. He was the only human in the massive room. His black suit looked simple compared to the fancy robes and armor the aliens wore. But he stood straight and calm, his hands folded behind his back. High above him, 12 beings sat on floating thrones. These were the council leaders, the most powerful aliens in the galaxy. Each one ruled over hundreds of worlds. Their combined fleets had millions of ships. When they spoke, entire star systems listened. The lead council member was a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis made of crystal. Its voice echoed through the hall like broken glass falling on stone. "Human Ambassador Tae-ho," it said. "You stand accused of terrible crimes against the Galactic Order." Tae-ho did not move. He did not speak. He just waited. "Your species has broken the sacred laws," the crystal being continued. "You have expanded beyond your allowed borders. You have stolen our technology. You have shown aggressive behavior that threatens the peace we have built." Around the hall, thousands of alien voices began to whisper. Some sounded angry. Others sounded afraid. Many sounded excited like they were watching a good show. Another council member spoke. This one looked like a floating jellyfish with golden tentacles. "The evidence is clear," it said in a voice that sounded like singing. "Human ships have been seen in forbidden space. Human scientists have taken our designs and made copies. Human soldiers have attacked our peaceful traders." Tae-ho finally moved. He turned his head slightly to look at the jellyfish creature. "Attacked?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the hall. "Or defended ourselves when your traders tried to board our ships without permission." The crystal mantis made a sound like breaking bottles. "You dare to argue with the council?" "I dare to tell the truth," Tae-ho said simply. The third council member was a being that looked like a living shadow with red eyes. It leaned forward on its throne. "Truth? The truth is that humans are dangerous. You multiply too fast. You adapt too quickly. You refuse to follow the proper order of things." "We refuse to be slaves," Tae-ho said. His voice stayed calm, but something cold flashed in his eyes. The hall went completely silent. Even the whispers stopped. The fourth council member was a creature made of what looked like living metal. Its body shifted and changed shape as it spoke. "No one is asking you to be slaves," it said. "We offer partnership. We offer protection. We offer a place in our great civilization." Tae-ho smiled. It was not a happy smile. "The same partnership. You offered the Velans? The same protection you gave the Korvath? The same place in civilization you provided the Zentari?" More silence. Every being in the hall knew those names. The Velans had been great builders of cities. The Korvath had been master traders. The Zentari had been brilliant scientists. All three species were now extinct. The crystal mantis stood up from its throne. Those species made their choices. They could not adapt to galactic society. They could not follow simple rules. "They could not survive your help," Tae-ho said. The fifth council member was a giant worm-like creature with 100 eyes along its body. "Enough!" it roared. "We did not call this gathering to debate history. We called it to deliver justice. The sixth council member looked like a tree made of blue light. Its voice was like wind through leaves. "The charges have been read. The evidence has been shown. It is time for judgment." Tae-ho reached into his jacket pocket. Every guard in the hall tensed, ready to fire their weapons, but he only pulled out a small communication device. "May I?" he asked politely. The crystal mantis waved one of its sharp arms. "Speak your last words to your world, human. Tell them what their defiance has cost them." Tae-ho activated the device. The air above it shimmered, and suddenly the face of a woman appeared. She had short black hair and wore a military uniform covered in medals. Her name was So-jin, and she was an admiral in the Earth Defense Force. "Admiral," Tae-ho said calmly. "They have made it official." So-jin smiled. It was a smile that would have made smart people very nervous. "About time," she said. "We were getting tired of waiting." The council members looked confused. This was not how condemned species usually acted. "Tell them we accept their declaration of war," Taeho continued, "and activate Protocol 7. "With pleasure," Sojin said. The image faded away. Taeho put the device back in his pocket. He looked up at the 12 council members. "There," he said. "I have delivered your message. Earth's response is simple. We accept your declaration of war." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some sounded shocked, others sounded pleased. A few sounded worried. The crystal mantis raised its arms for silence. "You accept?" it asked. "Just like that? No begging? No offers of surrender? No pleas for mercy?" "None," Taeho said. "We have been waiting for this day for a very long time." The shadow creature with red eyes leaned forward. "Waiting? Impossible. Your species could not have known we would declare war." Taeho's smile grew wider. "Could we not? You have done this same thing to 47 other species. Did you think we had not noticed the pattern?" The living metal creature shifted nervously. "You could not have prepared for war against the entire council. Your technology is primitive. Your fleets are small." "Our known fleets are small," Taeho agreed. "Our known technology is primitive. But you should have learned something about humans by now. We are very good at hiding things." The giant worm reared up on its throne. "Impossible! Our spies watch every human world. Our sensors monitor every human ship. We know exactly what you have." "You know exactly what we wanted you to know," Taeho said. "The question is, how long did you think we would let you spy on us without doing something about it?" The blue tree creature's light flickered nervously. "You are bluffing. Humans always bluff when they are cornered." Taeho shook his head. "We are not cornered. We are exactly where we plan to be." He looked around the great hall, meeting the eyes of thousands of alien beings. "For 50 years, you have tested us. You have pushed us. You have tried to make us submit. You probably thought you were being clever." He turned back to the council. "But every test you gave us made us stronger. Every push made us more determined. Every attempt to make us submit taught us more about how you think." The crystal mantis made its broken glass sound again. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that this war was inevitable," Taeho replied. "You would never let humanity be truly free, and we would never accept being your slaves. So war was always going to happen. The only question was when." He straightened his tie and smiled one more time. "We decided that when would be now. Today. This moment." His smile became something fierce and wild. "We have been preparing for this war since the day we met you. And now, finally, it begins." The hall fell silent again. But this time, the silence felt different. It felt like the moment before lightning strikes. It felt like the pause before an avalanche begins. It felt like the quiet second before everything changes forever. High above, the 12 council members looked down at the lone, humans standing in their great hall. For the first time in their long lives, they began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. 50 years ago, the sky above Seoul had filled with impossible ships. They came from nowhere, appearing like silver ghosts against the blue sky. Captain Bo-Ram had been a young pilot then, flying patrol missions over the Pacific Ocean. She remembered, the moment her radio crackled to life with a message that changed everything. "Unknown aircraft. This is Earth Defense Control. Please identify yourself." The answer came in perfect Korean, though the voice sounded strange, like music played through water. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We come in peace." Bo-Ram had laughed at the time. Peace. What a joke that had turned out to be. Now, 50 years later, she stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Mariana Trench. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, ship positions, and tactical data. Hundreds of officers worked at stations filled with blinking lights and soft sounds. This was the real heart of Earth's military, hidden where no alien spy could find it. "Captain," called a young officer named Jun-Ho, "Admiral Sojin wants to see you in the briefing room." Boram nodded and walked through corridors that had taken 20 years to build. The aliens thought humans lived only on the surface of their world. They had no idea about the vast underground cities, the hidden factories, the secret shipyards floating in the dark between the moons of Jupiter. The briefing room was filled with Earth's top military leaders. Admiral Sojin stood at the front, her uniform crisp and clean despite the fact that she had been working for 36 hours straight. Behind her, a massive screen showed the solar system with thousands of moving dots. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sojin said, "today we stop pretending." The room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. 50 years ago, when the aliens first arrived, they told us we were lucky, Sojin continued. They said they were offering us a great gift: membership in galactic civilization, protection from dangerous species, access to advanced technology. She pressed a button, and the screen changed to show images of beautiful alien cities, amazing spaceships, and incredible machines. But Dr. Hyunwoo saw through their lies from the very beginning. All eyes turned to an old man sitting in the front row. Dr. Hyunwoo had gray hair and kind eyes, but his smile was sharp as a blade. He stood up slowly, using a walking stick to support himself. "I was Earth's first xenobiologist," he said in a voice that was soft, but carried clearly through the room. "My job was to study the aliens and learn everything I could about them. What I found was not what anyone expected." The screen changed again. Now it showed the ruins of dead cities on distant worlds, broken ships floating in space, empty planets where nothing lived anymore. In their first gift of technology, the aliens included star maps, Hyunwoo explained. They wanted to show us how big the galaxy was, how many worlds were part of their great civilization, but they made a mistake. The maps were too detailed. He pointed at the screen with his walking stick. "I spent 10 years traveling to the worlds marked on those maps. I found 17 dead civilizations. All of them had been council members. All of them had received the same gifts we were being offered." The room was completely silent now. "The pattern was always the same," Hyunwoo continued. "First contact, membership offers, technology sharing. Then slowly, over decades, the new members would become dependent on council technology. Their own scientists would stop innovating. Their militaries would become weak. Their governments would start taking orders from council advisors. And then?" asked a young colonel named Yoonji. Hyunwoo's smile became sadder. "And then they would be quietly removed. The council would claim they had become dangerous, or that they had violated some law. Sometimes they would say the species had simply failed to adapt, but the result was always the same: complete extinction." Boram felt her hands clench into fists. She had suspected this, but hearing it confirmed still made her angry. "So we made a decision," Admiral Sojin said, taking control of the briefing again. "We would play their game. We would accept their gifts and their technology. We would follow their rules and act like grateful junior members. But we would never stop preparing for the day they showed their true nature." The screen changed to show hidden construction yards scattered throughout the solar system, massive ships that looked nothing like the primitive vessels Earth was supposed to have. Weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology in ways the aliens had never imagined. "For 50 years, we have been two different species," Sojin explained. "On the surface, we have been obedient humans, grateful for council protection and guidance. But underneath, we have been preparing for war." Commander Jin Ai stepped forward. She was young but already famous for her work on the secret shipyards. "We reverse-engineered everything they gave us," she said. "But we did not just copy it, we improved it. We made it better." She pointed to the screen, which now showed detailed schematics of human-built ships. "Their shields are powerful but inflexible. Our shields can adapt in real time. Their weapons are accurate but predictable. Our weapons can change their behavior in flight. Their computers are fast but follow strict programs. Our computers can think and learn." "How many ships do we have?" asked Major Woo Jin. Jin A smiled. "More than they think we could possibly build. Our shipyards have been working in shifts for 30 years. Every asteroid mining station has been building ship components. Every orbital factory has been producing weapons and supplies." Boram looked at the numbers on the screen and felt her breath catch. Earth had not just been preparing for war, they had been preparing to win. "What about our allies?" she asked. Dr. Hyunwoo chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Ah, yes, our allies. That was perhaps our greatest discovery." The screen changed to show a map of the galaxy. Dozens of worlds were marked with small symbols. "We were not the only species to figure out the Council's game," Hyunwoo explained. "Over the past 20 years, we have made contact with 37 other junior member species. All of them had begun to suspect the truth. All of them had been quietly preparing for rebellion. They have been sharing information with us," Sojin added. "Technology, intelligence, tactical data. The Council thinks they control the galaxy through fear and superior technology, but their own communication networks have become the tools of their downfall." The screen now showed message traffic between dozens of worlds, secret communications that had been flowing for years without the Council's knowledge. "Every species brings something different to our alliance," Jinne said. "The Kalani are master engineers. The Vorthak understand energy weapons better than anyone. The Nexari can hack any computer system ever built." "And what do humans bring?" asked Colonel Heejin. Admiral Sojin's smile was fierce and proud. "We bring something the galaxy has never seen before. We bring the refusal to accept defeat. We bring the ability to adapt and improvise. We bring the willingness to fight impossible odds and find a way to win anyway." The room erupted in quiet conversation as officers began to understand the scope of what had been planned. "How long have you known this day would come?" Boram asked. "From the beginning," Sojin replied. "The Council has followed the same pattern for thousands of years. They never change their methods because they have never needed to. But that is also their weakness. They are predictable." She looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leaders. "Today, they declared war on humanity. They think they are dealing with a primitive species that got lucky with a few technological advances. They have no idea what we really are." "And what are we?" asked Yunji. Sojin's smile became something that would have made the Council members very nervous if they could have seen it. "We are the species that has been preparing for this war since the day we met them. We are the species that turned their own weapons against them. We are the species that built an alliance right under their noses." She turned to look at the screen, showing the solar system. "And starting right now, we are the species that is going to show them what happens when you try to destroy humanity." Outside the hidden command center, Earth's secret fleets began to move. Ships that had waited in silence for decades started their engines. Weapons that had been built in secret powered up for the first time. And across the galaxy, 37 allied species received the message they had been waiting years to hear. The war had begun, and humanity was ready. The Council's war fleet was the largest ever assembled. 3,000 ships from 12 different species, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans were supposed to possess. They moved through space like a silver river of death, their weapons charged and ready to destroy every human colony they could find. Admiral Korath commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Eternal Dominion. He was a Vectani, a species that looked like walking crocodiles, with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. Korath had fought in 17 wars and had never lost a single battle. "Target the human colony on Kepler 442b first," he ordered his tactical officer. "Make an example of them. Show the other colonies what happens to species that defy the Council." The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Kepler system. Immediately, their sensors detected the human colony. It was exactly where their intelligence reports said it would be. The colony had 3 orbital stations, a small defensive fleet of 20 ships, and about 2 million human civilians living on the planet's surface. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, "the humans are trying to evacuate. Their civilian ships are leaving the orbital stations." Korath laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Let them run. It will make them easier to hunt later." But something felt wrong. The human ships were not fleeing in panic like they should be. Instead, they moved in careful formations, like they were following a plan. And their defensive fleet, instead of spreading out to protect the civilians, was grouping together near the largest orbital station. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "the human defensive fleet is requesting permission to speak with you." Korath's 4 eyes narrowed. "Put them through. Let them beg for mercy." The screen in front of him flickered to life, showing the face of a human woman in a military uniform. She had short black hair and calm eyes that showed no fear at all. "I am General Young-Soo of the Earth Defense Force," she said. "You are violating human space. Please withdraw immediately." Korath laughed again. "You are in no position to make demands, human. You have 20 ships. I have 3,000. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Young-Soo smiled. "I think you misunderstood. I was not making a demand. I was giving you a chance to leave before we destroy you." "Impossible," Korath roared. "Your primitive weapons cannot even scratch our shields." "You are right," Young-Soo agreed. "Our primitive weapons cannot scratch your shields." "Good thing. We are not using primitive weapons." She pressed a button on her command chair. "All ships, execute Protocol 7. Show them what we have been building." The space around the human colony suddenly exploded with light, but it was not weapons fire. It was ships, hundreds of ships that had been hidden somehow, now appearing like ghosts, becoming solid. Korath stared at his sensors in shock. Where? There had been 20 human ships. There were now over 400. And they looked nothing like the primitive vessels in the Council's intelligence reports. "Impossible," he whispered. "Where did they come from?" His sensor officer was frantically working at his station. "Sir, I think they were cloaked. But our technology cannot detect their cloaking method. It is like they were never there until they wanted to be seen." The human ships began to move, but they did not attack in the way Korath expected. Instead of charging forward in a straight line, they moved in complex patterns that made no sense. Some ships seemed to disappear and reappear in different locations. Others split apart into smaller vessels, then came back together. "What are they doing?" Korath demanded. His tactical officer looked confused. "I do not know, sir. They are not following any known battle formation. Their movements appear random, but that cannot be right." Young-Soo's voice came through the communication system again. "Admiral Korath, this is your last warning. Withdraw your fleet now." "Never!" Korath shouted. "All ships, open fire! Destroy every human vessel!" 3,000 Council ships fired at once. The space between the fleets filled with energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile trails. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But when the light faded, all the human ships were still there. "Report!" Korath demanded. "Sir," his tactical officer said in a voice full of confusion, "we did not hit anything. Every single shot missed. How is that possible?" "I do not know, sir. The humans seemed to know exactly where we were going to fire before we fired. They moved out of the way at the last possible second." On the screen, Young-Soo was still smiling. "Our turn," she said simply. The human ships opened fire. But their weapons were not like anything the Council had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they fired what looked like streams of liquid metal. The projectiles moved slowly, enough that Korath could see them coming, but they seemed to change direction in flight, weaving around defensive fire like living things. "Evasive maneuvers," Korath ordered. But the strange human weapons followed his ships no matter how they moved. And when they hit, they did not explode like normal weapons. Instead, they seemed to burrow into the Council ships' hulls like parasites. "Sir," his engineer reported, "the human weapons are doing something to our systems. They are rewriting our computer codes. Our weapons are powering down. Our shields are failing." Korath watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to fall apart. Ship after ship went dark as the human weapons infected their systems. Some ships started firing on their own allies. Others began spinning out of control. "How are they doing?" "This?" he demanded. Lieutenant Yoon-ji answered him from her own ship. She had been listening to the council communications, and now she broke into their channel. "Simple," she said cheerfully. "We have been studying your technology for 50 years. We know how all your systems work. Our weapons are not designed to destroy your ships. They are designed to take control of them." "Impossible," Korath raged. "Our computer systems are protected by quantum encryption." "Yes, they are," Yunji agreed. "Very good encryption. It took us almost 10 years to break it. But once we did, we built weapons that could hack any council system in real time." She paused to watch as another council dreadnought stopped firing and started broadcasting surrender signals. "The truth is, Admiral, your technology is very advanced, but it is also very standardized. All council ships use the same basic systems, the same computer protocols, the same defensive programs. That makes them powerful, but it also makes them vulnerable to anyone who understands how they work." Korath realized that his own ship was starting to malfunction. His weapons had stopped responding to commands. His navigation system was showing error messages. Even his life support was beginning to fluctuate. "This is not possible," he said desperately. "Humans are supposed to be primitive. You are supposed to be weak and helpless." Young Su appeared on his screen again. "Admiral, let me ask you something. In the past 50 years, how many human ships have you actually destroyed?" Korath thought about it. "We have destroyed hundreds of human vessels that violated Council space." "No," Young Su said gently. "You have destroyed hundreds of empty shells that we wanted you to destroy. You have never actually fought a human ship with a human crew. Every engagement you think you won was carefully staged to make you believe you were superior." The truth hit Korath like a physical blow. "You mean—" "I mean that for 50 years. You have been fighting shadows while we built an actual military," Young Su said. "Every attack you made on our colonies hit empty buildings. Every human ship you destroyed was an unmanned decoy. Every victory you celebrated was planned by us to make you overconfident. Around the Kepler system, the mighty Council fleet was in complete chaos. Some ships had been taken over entirely and were now under human control. Others were dead in space, their crews trapped inside malfunctioning vessels. A few were trying to retreat, but the human ships followed them easily, their strange weapons continuing to infect Council systems." Engineer Dong Hyun's voice came over the communication channel. "The beautiful thing about your technology," he said to the Council fleet, "is how connected everything is. Every ship talks to every other ship. Every system shares data with every other system. It makes your fleets very coordinated." He paused as another Council ship went dark. "But it also means that when we hack one ship, we can use it to hack all the others. Your own network becomes our weapon." Korath watched his fleet fall apart around him. In less than an hour, the largest Council war fleet in history had been completely defeated by an enemy they thought was primitive and weak. "This is impossible," he whispered. Young Su heard him. "Admiral, the impossible is what humans do best. We take situations that should result in our defeat and find ways to turn them into victories. We look at problems that seem unsolvable and solve them anyway." She leaned forward on her command chair. "For 50 years, you tested us. You pushed us. You tried to break our spirit and make us submit. But every test made us stronger. Every push made us more determined. Every attempt to break us taught us more about how to fight you." The space around Kepler 442b was now filled with floating Council ships, all of them dark and silent. The human fleet moved among them like shepherds gathering sheep. "You wanted to show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council," Young Su said. "Mission accomplished. You have shown them exactly what happens. The Council loses. Korath's ship fees." The Council emergency session was unlike anything in their 1,000-year history. The great hall that had been filled with confident voices just days ago now echoed with fear and confusion. Representatives from all 12 major species sat in worried groups, their usual calm shattered by reports coming in from across the galaxy. High Chancellor Vextar, the crystal mantis being who led the council, called for order with movements that were sharp and agitated. His normal composure was gone, replaced by something that looked very much like panic. "The reports cannot be accurate," he declared, his voice creating harsh echoes in the chamber. "Humans cannot have destroyed our finest war fleet. They are primitive beings with limited technology." But the evidence was impossible to ignore. Admiral Korath's entire force had been captured or destroyed in what the humans called the Battle of Kepler. 3,000 of the Council's most advanced ships had been defeated by a supposedly inferior enemy in less than 4 hours. Defense Minister Korth, a giant slug-like creature with multiple eyes, spoke in a voice like grinding gears. "The humans are using unknown technology. Our experts cannot explain how their weapons work. They seem to turn our own systems against us." "Impossible," insisted Science Director Malthon, whose body was made of flowing mercury. "We have studied human technology for 50 years. They are centuries behind us in every field." Captain Seung-ho would have laughed if he could have heard that conversation. He was currently sitting in the command center of his ship, the Indomitable, as it hung in space near the Arcturus system. Around him, his crew worked at stations that looked completely different from anything the Council had ever seen. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "Council reinforcements are approaching. 1,200 ships this time." Seung-ho nodded calmly. "Same plan as before?" "With modifications," said Lieutenant Jae-min from the communications station. "Dr. Mi-young's team has finished analyzing the captured Council ships. They have some new toys for us to try." Dr. Mi-young was Earth's leading expert on adaptive technology. While the Council spent decades developing new systems, her teams could modify and improve designs in a matter of days. It was one of humanity's greatest advantages in this war. "What do we have?" Seung-ho asked. Jae-min's smile was bright with excitement. "The Council ships we captured had some interesting defensive programs. Dr. Mi-young's team figured out how they work and built counters for them. But more importantly, they found a way to turn the defenses into weapons." Explain. "Council ships protect themselves by creating electromagnetic barriers around their hulls. The barriers deflect energy weapons and absorb impacts from physical projectiles. Very effective against normal attacks." Seung-ho waited for the rest. "But the barriers are controlled by computers that constantly adjust their frequency and intensity. Dr. Mi-young found a way to hack those computers and reverse the barrier polarity. Instead of protecting the ship, the barriers now crush it from the inside." "How long did it take her team to develop this?" 18 hours. Seung-ho shook his head in amazement. "The Council would have needed months or years to develop such a weapon. Human teams did it in less than a day." "Sir," called the sensor operator, "the Council fleet is entering weapon range." "Open a channel to them," Seung-ho ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of another Council admiral. This one was a Nexorian, a species that looked like giant praying mantises with gold-colored skin. Admiral Kletch had commanded fleets for over 200 years and had never lost a battle. "Human vessel," Kletch said in a voice like scraping metal, "you will surrender immediately. You are outnumbered 60-1. Seung-ho looked around his bridge. He had only 20 ships in his small fleet. The Council had 1,200. By any normal calculation, he should surrender immediately. "Admiral Kletch," he replied politely, "I appreciate the offer, but I think I will decline." Kletch's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You cannot possibly believe you can defeat my fleet with so few ships." "Admiral," Seung-ho said with a smile that was both friendly and dangerous, "you are thinking about this the wrong way. You have 1,200 ships, yes, but they are all built to fight enemies who follow the same rules you do. Enemies who use similar technology and similar tactics." He leaned back in his command chair. "We do not follow your rules. We do not use your technology, and we definitely do not use your tactics. Primitive weapons cannot defeat advanced shields," Kletch declared confidently. You are absolutely right, Xiong-Ho agreed. Primitive weapons cannot defeat advanced shields. Good thing we are not using primitive weapons. He turned to his weapons officer. Major Wu Jin, please show Admiral Kletch what Dr. Mi Young's team has been working on. Major Wu Jin had studied ancient Earth military philosophy for years. He understood that the best way to win a battle was to make the enemy defeat themselves. His fingers moved over his control panel with practiced ease. Firing adaptive barriers, he announced. The human ships launched what looked like clouds of glittering dust toward the Council fleet. The particles moved slowly through space, spreading out in complex patterns that seemed almost random. Kletch watched the approaching cloud with confusion. What are those supposed to be? Some sort of primitive projectile? Not projectiles, Xiong-Ho explained. Viruses. Computer viruses designed specifically for Council defensive systems. The glittering particles reached the Council ships and seemed to simply bounce off their shields. Kletch laughed. Your weapons cannot even penetrate our defenses. They are not supposed to penetrate your defenses, Xiong-Ho said calmly. They are supposed to become your defenses. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Council ships began to shudder and shake. Their defensive barriers, which had been protecting them from attack, suddenly reversed polarity and began crushing the ships they were supposed to defend. Impossible! Kletch shouted as his own ship started to buckle under the pressure of its own shields. How are you doing this? Colonel He-Jin answered from her ship, the Retribution. She had been studying economic warfare, and she understood that the best way to defeat an enemy was to turn their strengths into weaknesses. Simple, she said. Your ships are designed to be efficient. All Council vessels use the same basic systems to save time and money in production. That means they all have the same vulnerabilities. She watched as more Council ships began to collapse under the pressure of their own defensive systems. Dr. Mi Young's team spent 18 hours studying the captured ships from Admiral Korath's fleet. They learned exactly how your defensive systems work. Then they designed viruses that could hack those systems and turn them against you. Kletch was frantically trying to shut down his ship's defenses, but his controls were no longer responding. This is not possible! Our systems have quantum encryption! Yes, they do, agreed Dr. Mi Young's voice over the communication channel. She was speaking from her laboratory on Earth, where she and her team were already working on counters for the next generation of Council technology. Your quantum encryption is very good, she continued. It would take our computers about 50 years to break it, using normal methods, but we are not using normal methods. What do you mean? I mean that we are not trying to break your encryption. We are using your own computers to break it for us. Every Council ship carries quantum processors, designed to handle encrypted communications. We simply convinced those processors to decrypt their own defensive systems. Kletch's ship was now shaking so violently that he could barely stay in his command chair. How could you convince our computers to betray us? Easy, Dr. Mi Young said with the patience of a teacher explaining a simple concept to a slow student. We told them we were Council technicians running a routine diagnostic. Your own security protocols helped us gain access. Around the Arcturus system, the mighty Council fleet was destroying itself. Ships that had been built to withstand the most powerful weapons in the galaxy were being crushed by their own defensive systems. Crews that had trained for decades to fight external enemies were helpless against an attack that came from within their own technology. Captain Xiong-Ho watched the destruction with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. He took no pleasure in killing, but he understood that this war was necessary. The Council would never stop trying to destroy humanity unless they learned that such attempts would always fail. Admiral Kletch, he said to the dying Council commander, let me explain something about humans. We do not fight the way you expect us to fight. We do not use the weapons you think we will use. And we definitely do not follow the rules you want us to follow. Kletch's ship was starting to break apart now. What are you? He gasped. "We are the species that refuses to lose," Shang-Ho replied. "We are the species that turns every disadvantage into an advantage. We are the species that looks at impossible odds and finds a way to win anyway." He paused as the last council ship in the fleet finally succumbed to its own defenses. "And we are the species that has been preparing for this war since the day we met you." In the empty space where 1,200 council ships had once been, only debris remained. The human fleet moved through the wreckage, scanning for survivors and gathering intelligence that would help them in the next battle. Back on Earth, Dr. Mi-young and her team were. The council chambers had never seen anything like this. For the first time in their 1,000-year history, the 12 ruling species were not discussing how to maintain their power. They were discussing how to survive. High Chancellor Vextar stood before a massive display showing the galaxy. Red markers indicated worlds where council fleets had been destroyed. Blue markers showed worlds where rebellions had started. The blue markers were spreading faster than anyone had thought possible. "The situation is becoming critical," announced Defense Minister Korth. His voice, usually confident and commanding, now carried notes of fear. "We have lost 7 major fleets in the past month. Our total ship count has dropped by 40%. Science Director Malthon's mercury body shifted nervously. "The humans are not fighting alone anymore. Our intelligence reports indicate that 37 different species are now actively supporting them." "How is that possible?" demanded Council Member Threx, a being made of living crystal who controlled the communications networks. "We monitor all transmissions between worlds. We would have detected any conspiracy." Admiral Da-un would have smiled if she could have heard that conversation. She was currently in the command center of her flagship, the Liberation, coordinating with fleet commanders from dozens of different species. The communication system they were using was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. "Status report from all sectors," she requested. The responses came in quickly, each voice representing a different species that had thrown off Council control. The Kalani had always been master engineers, and their ships could repair themselves, even during battle. The Vorthak understood energy weapons better than anyone, and had developed new power systems that made their ships nearly invincible. The Nexari were computer experts who could hack any system ever built. "Sector 7 is clear," reported Commander Kel 9, a Kalani whose voice sounded like singing metal. "The Council garrison surrendered after we demonstrated our new shield technology. Sector 12 is under our control," added Fleet Leader Vorth Ka, whose energy-based body glowed brightly through the communication link. "Their defensive stations were no match for our adaptive weapons. Sector 18 has been liberated," confirmed network specialist Nex Prime, in a voice that sounded like multiple computers speaking in harmony. "We have taken control of all Council communication relays in this region." Admiral Da-un nodded with satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. While the Council focused on fighting human fleets, the real revolution was happening everywhere else. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were finally fighting back, and they were winning. "How many worlds have joined the Alliance?" she asked. 437 as of this morning," replied Captain Minho from his command ship. He had been coordinating the rebellion efforts across multiple star systems. "The number is growing by about 20 worlds per day." Fleet Commander Minho had always understood that this war was not really about military strength. It was about hope. For centuries, the Council had convinced the galaxy that resistance was impossible. But now, every Council defeat showed other species that freedom was possible. "The Council is trying to send reinforcements to their remaining strongholds," Minho continued, "but they are having trouble with coordination. It seems their communication networks are experiencing some problems." Da-un's smile was fierce with satisfaction. "What kind of problems?" "The kind that happen when 37 different species spend 50 years learning how to hack Council systems," Minho replied. "Every time they try to send orders to their fleets, the messages seem to get lost or changed. Sometimes their ships receive orders to attack each other, Sometimes they get orders to surrender. Yesterday, an entire council fleet received orders to join our alliance. Did they follow those orders? Half of them did. The other half was so confused they just sat in space doing nothing until we captured them. Captain Sora's voice came through the communication system from her ship near the galactic core. Admiral, we have a problem. The Council is pulling back all their remaining fleets to defend their home systems. They are abandoning the outer territories entirely. Da-Un frowned. This was not entirely unexpected, but it complicated their plans. How many ships are we talking about? Intelligence estimates suggest they still have about 15,000 ships, Sora replied. All of them are being concentrated around the 12 Council homeworlds. 15,000 ships, Da-Un mused. That is still a significant force. Yes, but they have a problem, added Dr. Hyun-woo's voice from Earth. The old scientist had become the Alliance's chief strategist, and his understanding of Council psychology was invaluable. They are designed to control the galaxy through overwhelming superiority. They have never faced a situation where they had to fight a defensive war. Explain, Da-Un requested. Council military doctrine is based on the idea that they will always have more ships, better technology, and superior firepower than any enemy, Dr. Hyun-woo continued. Their tactics assume they can simply overwhelm any opposition through brute force. He paused to let that sink in, but now they are facing an enemy that refuses to fight on their terms. We use their own technology against them. We turn their strengths into weaknesses. We make them fight battles they cannot win, using methods they do not understand. And when a species that has always relied on overwhelming force suddenly finds itself outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Dae-yoon asked. They panic, Dr. Hyun-woo said simply. They make mistakes. They become predictable. And eventually they make the one mistake that destroys them completely. Admiral Dae-yoon looked at the tactical display showing the positions of Allied and Council fleets throughout the galaxy. The situation was better than they had dared hope when the war started. The Council was in full retreat. Their authority was collapsing, and new species were joining the rebellion every day. But the war was not over yet. 15,000 ships was still a formidable force, and desperate enemies were often the most dangerous. All fleet commanders, she announced, prepare for Phase 3 operations. It is time to take the war to the Council home worlds. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Voices from dozens of species confirmed their readiness to finally end the Council's reign of terror. But even as they planned their final assault, changes were happening throughout the galaxy that went far beyond military victories. On the world of Keltar Prime, a species called the Beltani were experiencing freedom for the first time in 300 years. For centuries, they had been forced to send their best and brightest to serve in Council research facilities. Now, those same scientists and engineers were coming home, bringing with them knowledge and technology that would help their people prosper. In the Vortex Nebula, the Crystalline Collective was rebuilding their ancient cities. The Council had forced them to live in small, scattered communities to prevent them from becoming too powerful. Now they were coming together again, their crystal-based technology creating wonders that lit up entire star systems. Near the galactic rim, the Nomad fleets were reclaiming territories that had been forbidden to them for millennia. These space-dwelling people had been restricted to a few small sectors, barely able to sustain their population. Now they were spreading throughout the galaxy again, their living ships adapting to new environments and thriving. And on Earth, President Ki-jun was working with representatives from all the allied species to create something that had never existed before, a galactic government based on cooperation instead of domination. The challenge, Ki-jun explained to the assembled delegates, is to create a system that respects the sovereignty of each species while still allowing for effective coordination and mutual defense. Ambassador Nara nodded in agreement. She had been studying galactic law for decades, looking for ways to create a better system than the one the Council had imposed. The Council's mistake was assuming that unity required uniformity. They tried to make every species follow the same rules, use the same technology, and think the same way. But diversity is actually a strength, added Representative Ju Wan from the Human Diplomatic Corps. Different species bring different perspectives, different technologies, and different solutions to problems. A galaxy with many different approaches to challenges is more resilient than one with only a single approach. The delegates from other species listened with interest. Many of them had never imagined that galactic government could be anything other than the Council's system of absolute control and rigid hierarchy. What we are proposing, Ki-jun continued, is a voluntary alliance of free species. Each member would maintain complete control over their own internal affairs, but we would work together on matters of mutual interest, trade, exploration, defense, against external threats, and the sharing of knowledge and technology. And if disputes arise between member species? Asked Fleet Leader Vorthka. Mediation and negotiation, Nara replied, with force as an absolute last resort and only for self-defense. The goal is to solve problems through cooperation, not through domination. It was a radical idea. For thousands of years, galactic politics had been based on the idea that the strong ruled the weak. The Council had simply been the latest and most successful example of that philosophy. But now, for the first time, the final battle took place not in space, but in the same grand chamber where the Council had declared war on humanity 6 months earlier. But now everything was different. The floating thrones of the Council members were empty. The thousands of seats that had once held representatives of subjugated species were filled with delegates from the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Ambassador Tae-ho stood in the center of the chamber again. But this time he was not alone. Representatives from 43 different species stood with him, all of them free for the first time in centuries. High Chancellor Vextar, the crystal mantis who had led the Council for over 200 years, knelt before them in chains made of energy. His proud bearing was gone, replaced by the hunched posture of defeat. Around him, the other 11 Council leaders waited in similar restraints. "You have destroyed everything," Vextar said, his voice no longer carrying the authority it once had. "The galactic order that took millennia to build, the peace that our rule provided, the stability that kept chaos at bay." Tae-ho looked down at the fallen leader with eyes that showed no hatred, but also no mercy. "We have destroyed a system built on oppression and fear. The peace you provided was the peace of the grave. The stability you maintained was the stability of a prison." "And what will you replace it with?" demanded Council Member Threx, the living crystal who had once controlled all galactic communications. "Chaos? War between species? The collapse of civilization itself?" President Ki-jun stepped forward. She had arrived on the Council homeworld just hours earlier, traveling in a ship that had once belonged to the Council fleet. "We will replace it with something you never tried, something you never believed was possible." "Which is?" "Freedom," Ki-jun said simply. "The freedom for each species to choose their own path. The freedom to cooperate or compete as equals. The freedom to build their own future instead of having it dictated by others." Secretary General Nara moved to stand beside Ki-jun. In her hands, she carried a document that had been signed by representatives from every liberated world. "The Galactic Liberation Charter," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "A voluntary agreement between free species to work together while respecting each other's independence." She held up the document for all to see. "No more forced tribute. No more mandatory technology transfers. No more species being quietly eliminated when they become inconvenient. No more junior members and senior members. Just equals, working together to build a better galaxy. Science Director Malthon's mercury body rippled with agitation. Impossible. Different species cannot coexist as equals. There must be hierarchy. There must be order. There must be control. Dr. Hyun-woo's voice came from speakers placed throughout the chamber. The old scientist was speaking from Earth, but his words carried the weight of decades of study and observation. For 50 years, you told us that cooperation between species was impossible, he said. You insisted that only domination could maintain peace. You claimed that freedom would lead to chaos and war. He paused, and when he continued, there was a note of quiet satisfaction in his voice. But in the past 6 months, 43 different species have worked together to defeat the most powerful military force in galactic history. They have shared technology, coordinated strategy, and fought side by side without a single act of betrayal or abandonment. Temporary cooperation, born of necessity, Vextar insisted. Once the common enemy is gone, they will turn on each other. Will we? Asked Commander Kel-9, speaking for the Kalani. Because we have learned more about engineering in the past 6 months than we did in the previous 60 years. Human innovation combined with our manufacturing knowledge has created technologies neither species could have developed alone. Fleet Leader Vorth-Ka's energy form pulsed with agreement. The Vorthak have always been masters of energy manipulation, but working with Nexari computer specialists and human adaptive systems, we have created power sources that will revolutionize space travel for everyone. Network specialist Nex Prime's harmonic voice added, the Nexari computing networks, enhanced with human creativity and Kalani engineering precision, can now solve problems that would have taken us centuries to address alone. Defense Minister Korth looked confused. But this makes no sense. Competition drives innovation. Conflict creates strength. How can cooperation produce better results than conquest? Captain Sora answered from her position near the chamber's entrance. Because you never understood what humans bring to any alliance. We bring the refusal to accept that anything is impossible. We bring the ability to see opportunities where others see only problems. We bring the willingness to try new solutions when old ones fail. She gestured toward the assembled delegates. Every species here has unique strengths. The Council's approach was to either suppress those strengths or steal them for your own use. Our approach is to combine them, to let each species contribute what they do best while learning from what others do well. Admiral Da-Un's voice joined the conversation from the fleet command ship orbiting overhead. The result is that instead of one dominant species slowly draining the strength from all others, we have dozens of species making each other stronger. Vextar shook his crystal head in what might have been despair. This cannot last. There will be conflicts. There will be disagreements. There will be wars. Probably, Tejo agreed calmly, but they will be honest conflicts between equals, not the systematic oppression of the weak by the strong. They will be disagreements that can be resolved through negotiation and compromise, not through threats of extinction. He looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds. And when wars do come, they will be fought by free beings defending their choices, not by slaves obeying their masters. President Ki-jun stepped forward again. The question now is what to do with you. The former council leaders looked up with a mixture of fear and defiance. Some of our allies want to execute you, Ki-jun continued. They say you have caused too much suffering, destroyed too many civilizations, to deserve mercy. Vextar's crystal form seemed to dim. And what do you say, human? I say that executing you would make us no better than you were, Ki-jun replied. But we cannot allow you to remain free to threaten others. Secretary General Nara opened another document. The War Crimes Tribunal has reached its decision. You will be exiled to a system at the edge of the galaxy. You will have one world with enough resources to sustain your populations. But you will have no faster-than-light travel, no weapons beyond what you need for hunting and defense, and no communication with the rest of the galaxy. Exile. Vextar whispered. A living death. A chance to learn, Tejo corrected. A chance to discover what your own species can accomplish when they are not focused on dominating others. A chance to see if you can build something worth having instead of something worth taking. Dr. Hyun-woo's voice came through the speakers again. The exile is not permanent. If after 50 years your species can demonstrate that they have learned to live in peace with each other and with their environment, the Alliance will reconsider your status. 50 years, Threx said bitterly. You expect us to change the fundamental nature of our species in 50 years? We expect you to try, Ki-jun said. The same way we tried to build an alliance that everyone said was impossible. The same way we tried to fight a war that everyone said we could not win. The same way we are trying to build a galaxy where freedom and cooperation triumph over fear and domination. The formal sentencing took several more hours. Each of the former council leaders was given a chance to speak, to defend their actions, to argue for mercy. Some were defiant to the end. Others seemed genuinely surprised that their victims had not simply massacred them in revenge. But when it was over, the real work began. Ambassador Tejo found himself standing in the same spot where he had received the Council's declaration of war 6 months earlier. But now, instead of being a lone human facing the assembled might of galactic civilization, he was surrounded by allies and friends. So, said Commander Kel-9, what happens now? Tejo smiled, and this time it was a smile of genuine happiness rather than grim determination. Now we find out if we are as good at building as we are at fighting. Now we discover whether species that can work together to win a war can also work together to win a peace. Fleet Leader Vorth Ka's energy form pulsed with anticipation. The challenges will be enormous. Rebuilding worlds that were damaged in the fighting, integrating technologies from dozens of different species, creating new trade relationships and diplomatic protocols, learning to trust each other when we are not facing a common enemy, added network specialist Nex Prime. All true, Tejo agreed. But 6 months ago, everyone said it was impossible for 43 different species to coordinate a military campaign against the most powerful force in the galaxy, and yet here we are. He looked around the great chamber, which was already being converted from a symbol of domination into a center for cooperation. If we can do the impossible once, perhaps we can do it again. President Ki-jun joined the group, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who had been working without rest for months. The first Galactic Alliance Assembly will convene here in 30 days. Every member species, while